Hi, I'm George and this is Dave, and we're coming to you from Acme Guitar Works, and we're here to tell you about this guitar that we have just hot rodded. This is a Fender road-worn Stratocaster. It's a 50s road-worn. This is the original road-worn. Fender made the 50s and the 60s. Now they make some other versions of road-worn guitars, but this is the first one that they did. It's a pretty true copy of a 50s Stratocaster, but they did put taller fret wire on it, which is a good thing in our opinion. So we'll go through and tell you what we do. But first off, we buy these guitars new from Fender. We're an authorized Fender dealer, and then we put parts and labor into them to make them really shine, and so you end up with a guitar that's really a fantastic guitar for a lot less money than you typically are going to pay for a really fantastic guitar. I really like this guitar. You know, anybody that likes Blackie is going to like this guitar. Just this look is so iconic. One thing that we did do cosmetically a little different though, the pickguards that Fender's using on these road-worn guitars is white. We don't have the trim cover on, or I'd show you that, but basically it's white and it looks like it's sort of airbrushed around the perimeter a little bit to make it look a little bit aged. But this is actually a parchment, single-ply parchment pickguard that's also been aged by Fat Boy in the UK. They do pretty nice pickguards. They look pretty authentic, and it just is a little more muted color-wise. It doesn't have that stark white color, but we kept the aged white accessory kit, the knobs and covers and stuff that came with the guitar. So it just looks slightly different than it looked when it came out of the box. But there's a lot of other changes that we made that are not cosmetic. First thing is we put a bone nut on it. We're pretty much doing this on all guitars now because it's a good material to make nuts out of. It's a good hard material. It sounds really good. It's traditional, and you don't usually see it at this price point, but it allows us to do a couple of things. One is to ensure that the string spacing is really consistent from string to string, and also to get the height right, because a lot of times guitars that otherwise are well set up don't play as well as they can because the nut slots are too high, and so the guitar, especially down here, will feel like it's just doesn't feel as good as some other guitar, and that can be the reason. So the bone nut fixes that. We do a really good job with it, and it sounds good, plays good, and is good. So the next thing that we do is so the next thing is Fender ships this guitar with tall fret wire. It comes with Dunlop 6105 wire, which is pretty tall, but we want to make sure that the tops of the frets are all level, because if they're not, you can't get best case action, and we want best case action. So we level, crown, and polish the frets so that they're level, the action's nice and low, the guitar feels comfortable to play, but also it feels comfortable when you bend the strings because the frets are nicely polished, and so it just feels really good, and that's what you want. When we did the pickguard, this pickguard ships without shielding. The road-worn guitars, they just shield the back of the pickguard right in this area. But back in, from about 59 through the mid-60s, late 60s, they used a separate aluminum shield plate, Fender did, that covered the entire back of the pickguard. In fact, it just attached to the back of the pickguard. It came all the way almost out to the perimeter, and so we put one of those on here, but from Callahan. So it's a separate aluminum shield plate, but it's fully shielded, and we shielded the control cavity as well, the wood, so that the electronics are fully shielded. These pickups are Lindy Freyland Vintage Hots, and these are Freyland's most popular model. Vintage Hot means vintage neck middle hot bridge. That's where the name comes from. The bridge, if you talk to Freyland, he'll tell you that the bridge on a Stratocaster, he always felt like that pickup was a little thin and weak, and so they wind this one until the bobbin's full. That's the deal. So typical Strat bridge pickup would have about 6,000 ohms if you measure the DC resistance, and this pickup's about 7,000, and at that point they've run out of bobbin, so it's just a little bit more output, and what it's really doing is compensating tonally. If you take 3 pickups of equivalent output, put them in a guitar, the neck pickup's going to be louder because you have more string energy over this pickup than you do here. And so the extra beef in the bridge pickup basically just compensates for that, and allows the bridge pickup not to sound thin and wimpy. But also on this bridge pickup, to further enhance its beefiness, we have a Fralin base plate on the bottom. And the base plate is a steel plate that goes on the bottom of the pickup, and it just strengthens and redirects the magnetic field. So again, it just further compensates for that inherent weakness of the bridge pickup. We also rewire the guitar. It's completely rewired from scratch. Our wiring is beautiful. I mean, I gotta say, you look at our wiring versus a lot of factory wiring, and there's just no comparison. We use all the best components. Everything is spec'd with the tightest tolerances. It's all, you know, an American CRL switch, a Switchcraft jack, CTS pots with the tightest tolerances that CTS offers. So it's all done properly. But we also do a Lindy Fralin trick. We make this a blender pot, and the blender pot, so now you have a volume and a master tone instead of having two tone controls. A straight up 5-way switch, normal Strat wiring. When these two pots are fully clockwise, and this one as well, it's just a Stratocaster with a volume and tone. There's no difference. The only difference is when you start to roll this control counterclockwise, it allows you to combine the bridge and neck, kind of like a telly in the middle position, or it allows you to get all three pickups on. And with some subtle shading that I'm not talking about, you can read more about it on our site, and Dave will show you some of it. But it just gives you tonal flexibility that you don't normally have with a Stratocaster, but without adding a bunch of mini toggle switches and push-pull pots and all that kind of stuff. Just a 5-way, 3 knobs like a vintage Stratocaster. The final thing that we did is we upgraded the tremolo on this guitar. This guitar ships with a vintage 6-screw tremolo with the vintage spacing, the vintage string spacing. But we put a set of Callahan saddles on it because Callahan saddles are just beautifully made. We've compared them to some others, and they're just they're good quality material, they're heavy material, and everything is machined really well. The screws are always perfectly perpendicular, the threads are tight, everything about them, they're just nicely made. So we aged them in this application so that they'll sort of look the part with the aged guitar. The other thing we did is we put a Callahan steel tremolo block, because these guitars ship from Fender with a zinc block, a cast zinc block. All the vintage Strats had a solid steel block, and so we put a steel block in it, and we changed the springs out. These springs are made by Raw Vintage. They're a company that has lots of cool products. You may be familiar with their Exotic company that makes pedals and cables and cool stuff. But these springs are a lower tension than the factory springs that the guitar ships with, and so when you play the tremolo, it just feels really good. It's got the Callahan block with the arm, so there's no play in the arm, in the threads. It just feels really, it's a really smooth, great feeling tremolo, and it stays in tune well. Dave tends to use the tremolo a lot, and you'll see that at the end of the video, the guitar's still in tune, even though it's got the vintage style Fender tremolo, and that's because it's properly set up. Okay, that's enough about the guitar. Dave's going to play it now, and you'll get to hear how great it sounds. Neck pickup. Neck and middle. Middle.
Neck pickup. Well, let's do the blender. This is neck and bridge.
Right.
Trim feels nice on it. So you can just kind of put that at 5, and then what do you have? Less of the neck pickup?
That's right, yeah. So you still have full bridge because your 5-way is in the bridge position.
So if I was to go there, then I would have less of the bridge pickup?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, let's hear that. I like that. Let's hear a little more gain on that. Nice. Let's hear some more gain. Let's go to the bridge pickup and see what that bass plate adds to it. Sounds really good. And it's shielded good. That's a lot of gain. Normally you'd hear a lot of hum on that.
It's a true single coil right now, so yeah, do you have both on? You got the blender rolled out?
Nope, this is just the bridge pickup.
Just a bridge pickup, yeah.
This is now with the blender in, so
Here's some Eddie Van Halen.
sounds really good.
Okay, so so as you can see, it's a great guitar. It sounds great. It plays great. Everything about it is cool, and it's a really reasonable price. We always have guitars like this available. This one will probably be gone by the time you see this video, but we are always doing these. So check out our website, and if there's something that you'd like us to do specifically, give us a call. We'd be happy to modify a guitar for you. Thanks for watching.